The office air turned cold as the woman's sharp voice echoed through the room.
Stay away from my fiancé.
Sarah stood frozen, her lips slightly parted, struggling to process what she had just heard. Mr. Anderson engaged? But he had never mentioned a fiancé, not once. The woman, tall and elegant, crossed her arms, her eyes filled with quiet fury.
I don't know what you think you're doing, but whatever little game you're playing, it ends now.
Sarah opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, Mr. Anderson appeared from his office. His gaze shifted between the two women, confusion flickering across his face.
What's going on here?
The woman turned to him, her voice suddenly softer but still dripping with venom.
Anderson, darling, I was just having a little chat with your employee.
She glanced back at Sarah, as if she was something insignificant.
I was reminding her of her place.
Sarah clenched her fists but forced herself to stay calm.
Mr. Anderson,
she said evenly.
I didn't know you were engaged.
He let out a sigh, rubbing the back of his neck.
Sarah, this is Vanessa. Mia, fiancé?
A heavy silence settled between them. Sarah felt something inside her chest tighten. So all this time, had she been misunderstanding his kindness? Had she let herself believe in something that wasn't real? Vanessa smirked, stepping closer to Anderson and looping her arm around his.
I just came to see where my future husband spends so much of his time,
she said, emphasizing the word husband. Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat.
I should get back to work,
she murmured before turning away. But as she walked down the hallway, her mind raced. Something didn't feel right. If they were engaged, why had Anderson never mentioned her? And why did his eyes seem full of regret when he looked at Sarah? Little did she know, this was only the beginning of the storm. Sarah tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept replaying the confrontation with Vanessa. The sharpness in the woman's voice, the way Mr. Anderson had hesitated before. She stormed into his office. Something didn't add up. That evening, as Sarah and Leo walked home, the silence between them felt heavier than usual. Leo glanced up at his mother, sensing that something was wrong. Sarah barely spoke, her face unreadable. When he finally asked if she was okay, she forced a smile.
I'm fine. Sweetheart, just a long day. But the weight in her voice told a different story.
Days passed, and the tension at work only grew worse. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some whispered that Sarah was trying to trap a rich man. Others claimed that Vanessa had forced Mr. Anderson to fire her. Then, one afternoon, Sarah was called into his office. Mr. Anderson leaned against his desk, looking exhausted.
Sarah, I need to explain.
Sarah stood with her arms crossed.
I don't need an explanation. Mr. Anderson, your fiancé made it very clear where I stand.
He sighed.
Vanessa and I, it's complicated. This engagement was arranged by our families. It's not what you think.
Sarah frowned.
Then why didn't you tell me?
Mr. Anderson hesitated.
Because I didn't want you to think my kindness had anything to do with her. I respect you, Sarah, and I admire you.
Her heart pounded, but she shook her head.
Respecting me doesn't change the fact that you're engaged.
He stepped closer.
I don't love her, Sarah.
His voice was low, almost pleading.
But
Before he could finish, the office door swung open. Vanessa stood there, her eyes burning with rage.
I knew it.
She spat.
You really are after him.
Sarah took a step back.
This isn't what it looks like.
Vanessa turned to Mr. Anderson.
You think you can just throw everything away for her? For some struggling single mother?
His jaw tightened,
Vanessa, stop.
but she wasn't finished.
You owe me, Anderson. You think you can just walk away from this engagement? My family owns a part of your company. If you leave me, you lose everything.
Sarah's breath caught. The truth was finally clear. Mr. Anderson was trapped. And now she had just become another problem in his already complicated world. But one thing was certain. Vanessa wasn't going to let him go without a fight. Sarah stood frozen in Mr. Anderson's office, her heart pounding. She had always known that the gap between their worlds was vast, but now it felt impossible to cross. Vanessa's words echoed in her mind.
If you leave me, you lose everything.
Sarah glanced at Mr. Anderson, searching for an answer in his eyes. He looked conflicted, torn between duty and something else, but she knew what she had to do. She took a deep breath and stepped back. Sarah's voice.
I don't belong in this fight. Mr. Anderson, your life, your world, it's not for me.
Anderson's eyes widened.
Sarah, wait.
She turned toward Vanessa.
You don't have to worry. I'm leaving.
Vanessa smirked, arms crossed, as if she had won. But Sarah wasn't doing this for her. She was doing it for herself. A week passed. Sarah quit her job at Mr. Anderson's company and returned to working long hours at the diner. It was as if nothing had changed, except everything had. Then, one evening, just as the diner was about to close, the door swung open. Mr. Anderson stood there. He looked exhausted, as if he had been running, but his eyes were filled with determination.
Sarah,
He said, breathless.
please don't walk away from me.
Sarah froze.
Mr. Anderson, what are you doing here?
He stepped closer.
I made my choice. Vanessa is gone. The engagement is over.
Sarah shook her head.
But your company.
I don't care.
His voice was firm.
I've spent my whole life doing what other people expected. But you made me realize what truly matters.
For the first time in a long time, there was something different in Sarah's eyes. Sarah stood frozen at the entrance of the diner, staring at Mr. Anderson. She had spent years building walls around her heart, telling herself that love wasn't something she could afford. And yet, here he was, choosing her, choosing them. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. The past few weeks had been a storm of emotions, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to believe in happiness again. Then, from behind her, Leo's small voice broke the silence.
Mom, do we have to struggle forever?
Sarah turned to look at her son. His eyes weren't filled with desperation or sadness. They were filled with hope. Mr. Anderson took a step closer.
You don't have to do this alone anymore, Sarah.
Tears welled up in her eyes. She had spent so many years fighting on her own that she had forgotten what it felt like to have someone fight for her. Slowly, she nodded.
Okay.
Mr. Anderson smiled, a real, genuine smile.
Okay?
Sarah let out a soft laugh, wiping away her tears.
Yes. Okay.
Leo grinned, running up to hug his mother.
Does this mean we're gonna be a family?
Sarah looked at Mr. Anderson. She still didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she was willing to find out. Mr. Anderson crouched down to Leo's level.
I promise. I'll always be here for you both.
And just like that, a new chapter began. A chapter filled with hope, love, and the belief that sometimes, Even the most unexpected love stories have a happy ending.